Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys our NCP Week 5 battle against Venthune and his Uppsala Umbreon. Sven's a very good player. He took over for Sally this season, which we definitely very much so appreciate over the NCP admin team. But definitely go check him out. He's got some cool stuff, and he always brings some really interesting tech, to say the least. So I'm sure you'll definitely enjoy his side of the battle, as well. Check out all the other coaches, and drop a sub to the channel if you do enjoy today's video. At the time of me recording this on Saturday or Friday morning, I am at 699 subs. So one more gets us to 700, which inches us closer to that goal of 1,000. So I'd really appreciate it. Now, before we jump into the team builder, I do just want to give you guys a heads up. This is going to be a post com. I played it live com. I live com when I played it. But again, I want to kind of transition to doing post coms for a little bit and see how it works for me, just because I have not been playing super well, as many of you probably know. So we're going to start that transition. Well, we started it last week, but we're going to continue with it this week. And yeah, that being said, let's jump into the team build. If you want to skip ahead to the battle itself, there's a timestamp on the screen, as well as in the description below. Alrighty, so our team, if you did forget, is at the top of the screen. It consists of Garchomp, Heatran, Scolipede, Jellicent, Celebi, Scrafty, Inteleon, Thundy, Munchlax, and Sudowoodo, while our opponent's team is at the bottom of the screen, and it consists of Sheer Force, Landorus, Incarnate, Tyranitar, Spectrier, Klefki, Porygon 2, Barraskewda, Blaziken, Slowbro, Galar, Ditto, Lantern, and Lurantis. Now, biggest stretch to me, Lando I, man. I don't have an answer for Lando I. This might be one of the worst Lando I matchups ever. I actually just have nothing for it. Between just Earth Power and, I suppose, Sludge Wave, even U-Turn, I just lose to it. Focus Blast just blows through Scrafty as well. There's not much I can do to consistently beat Lando I, other than pressure it offensively, hopefully, and outspeed it and kill it, basically. It's my only way of beating that Pokemon, so we're going to have to be so careful about that thing and really position ourselves well offensively. Spectrier can actually be a pretty demonic Pokemon versus me. I was really expecting a sub-disable set, like a sub-disable Nasty Plot or a sub-disable Calm Mind or something like that set. Could really do a lot of work if I'm not like two-ways hitting it on my Scrafty, because Scrafty's really the only answer I have to it. So we have to, you know, prep accordingly for that, at the very least. Klefki can be very annoying with spikes. Barraskewda is very tough for me to deal with. Liquidation plus Crunch kind of just murks my whole team, so you gotta be very careful about that. Blaziken is also scary as well if the Jellicent gets chipped down, which spoilers for bringing it. It can also do a lot of work versus us, but everything else I feel is very manageable. So, that being said, let's go and jump into it. Our first one is going to be our Garchomp. We're just Scarf, Max, Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Stealth Rock, and Outrage. This Pokemon is really solid. He has a really bad ground resist in Lurantis, and I don't expect it whatsoever to come into me. I feel like I have a phenomenal Lurantis matchup, and I don't particularly see why it would come. But if it does, we can obviously still blow through it with like Dragon Claws and Outrages and things like that. It gives me a nice revenge killer to the Landers, even if it's like some weird Choice Scarf variant. I believe we'll still always outspeed it because we're max, which is great. It gives me something to outspeed Scarf Blaziken, a non-scarfed Barraskewda. It gives me something to outspeed a +1 T-Tar or something like that if it is like a D-Dance variant. So I think Scarf is very good here, and I don't see myself getting too many setup opportunities with Garchomp. And it also lets me revenge Spectrier. Spectrier isn't Scarf, and I really don't expect Scarf Spectrier either. So I think Garchomp is very solid here. And yeah, let's go and jump into the next mon, which is going to be our Jellicent, rocking out with the Colbert Berry, Water Absorb its ability, Surf, Taunt, Recover, and Shadow Ball. We got 220 HP, 244 defense, and 44 speed with a bold nature. Speed is just for creeps, and then we're pretty much max Fizdef, or as Fizdef as we can get with this variant. And yeah, it's a really good check into that Barraskewda and that Blaziken. I think it's a necessary evil for both of those guys. Colbert also says maybe take a tar hit, and if it's low enough for Surf to knock it out, so like 30%. 25%, that's really pretty low. We can take that on. Surf just gives a little bit more of a damage output and better rolls versus things like Blaziken. Surf into Aqua Jet kills Blaziken with, you know, the investment that we have on our Inteleon later, which we'll kind of talk about when we get there. But very solid Pokemon in the sense that it just checks two of the kind of mid-tier threats that really bully my team offensively. And we soft check other things, like we can take 8 Landers, hit and throw off a big Surf, and, you know, things like that, which is very nice. We can taunt his fat, things like Porygon, and, you know, do some work that way, which is nice. Next up, we have our Scrafty rocking out the leftovers. Intimidate as its ability, Drain Punch, Knock Off, Sleep and Rest, or Sleep Talk and Rest. 212 HP, 4 attack, 4 defense, 244 speed def, and 44 speed with a careful nature. Yeah, this is going to be our main Spectrier check, obviously. We are Rest Talk instead of like a bulk up set, which I actually really originally liked because his fairy is Klefki. But the reason we're not is because I played a disable, sub-disable set in Mox, and it just beats me 1v1 and beats my entire team after that. So it's really tough for me to justify any set besides Rest Talk here. We can also soft check Landers and take a hit and knock it off. We can also check the T-Tar as long as it's not superpower. We'll be in a pretty good spot against that guy as well, which is nice. And yeah, we can just throw off big knockoffs and just be a general nuisance. It also checks the P2 obviously very, very well. And non-fairy move Klefki we can kind of sit on forever. Next up, we have our Scolipede rocking out with the Life Orb. Speed Boost has its ability, Megahorn, Aqua Tail, Spikes, and Earthquake. Eevee has got 28 HP, max attack, 52 defense, 4 Super Def, and 172 speed with a Jolly Nature. We just have a Life Orb number in HP, max attack, leftover in defense. We're creeping whatever his fastest mon is, and I think it's, or fast mon that we can't outspeed, and I think that is going to be Landers. Offensively, this Pokemon does phenomenally. Megahorn, Aqua Tail, and Earthquake just kind of rip through my opponent's entire team. Spikes are also very, very nice, especially if he wants to go the Spikes route himself. His defogger is Lurantis and Klefki. And neither of those beat me, so I don't think that they're going to be defoggers in this matchup in particular. Life Orb Aqua Tail does a ton to Landers, which is also really, really important and nice to have. Megahorn just nukes through T-Tar and things like that, and the other things that like resist these combinations still don't appreciate taking the hits, especially if I do end up getting up Spikes and maybe Rocks on my Chomp on like on an aggressive play, expecting them to switch. So Scully does really well here offensively for sure. Next up, we have our Celebi, a set that I really think puts in a lot of work with Leaf Storm, Nasty Plot, Recover, and Earth Power. We got 140 HP, 4 defense, 156 special attack, 4 def, and 204 speed with a Modest Nature. This Pokemon offensively does really well in my opinion. It really bullies down a lot of his fat. I believe we're creeping Blaziken with this guy. And I totally forget what the other calcs are for. But we can pivot on things like P2, Klefki, Lantern, even Lurantis because it sucks. Things like that, and be able to Nasty Plot and really just push through a lot of his team. I believe after a Spike, and that might be what our specialized attack is for, I think after a Spike, a +2 Leaf Storm knocks out T-Tar, which is really, really nice. Earth Power hits everything that Leaf Storm really doesn't, outside of Lurantis. But again, I really, really don't expect Lurantis to come all too much, and +2 Leaf Storms will still potentially push through it very well, which is really nice. And yeah, it's a great status absorber as well for Klefki, Porygon 2, and the, what do you call it, the Lantern, which is, again, really, really clutch for our team. And I think this Pokemon's going to do a lot of work. Then lastly, we have our Inteleon, rocking out the choice specs, Sniper has its ability, Snipe Shot, Aqua Jet, U-Turn, Dark Pulse. It usually has got 28 attack, 252 speed, or 252 special attack, and 228 speed with like a Rash Nature, whatever plus special attack minus Super Def is. This Pokemon, again, does really, really, really well. I don't expect, like I said, well, I wouldn't be too surprised if Lantern came, right? But I think with U-Turn and Rocks and Spikes, we can really chip that thing down and put it in range of the rest of our team. And I think it's going to be Volt Absorb if it does end up coming. So we can kind of U-Turn around, get ourselves in advantageous positions offensively with either Garchomp or our Celebi. And if it doesn't come, Snipe Shot's really, really free against this team. We have Aqua Jet because there were a lot of instances in Mox where I was really struggling with like endgame Rock Polish Landorus. It was just out of range of an attack and it would live and get up like a Calm Mind and a, what do you call it? And a Rock Polish, and I would lose to it. Or I even played like an agility weakness policy Blaziken that got into my Jellicent and like set up on it, and it was pretty tough. Or it could get into my Jellicent and set up on me, which is pretty tough to say the least. So if I can like, you know, get off a big Surf on those mons and then get off an Aqua Jet, that's really, really clutch in my opinion. And it can even pick off some weakened threats like a Spectre that's, you know, super, super low, which is again really, really important. So yeah, that's gonna be the team. I'll be right back with the battle. Alrighty guys, here we are at the battle. Let me turn on my key light. Goodness gracious. Forgot I was it was still off from when I went to bed last night. But let's go ahead and jump into the battle. I'm gonna be skipping around a bit, as you can see. The live comm is 26 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip around, and you know, we'll skip through non-important turns and downtime and things like that. If you guys don't like that, let me know. Again, we're kind of learning things as we go and figuring this stuff out. So we're gonna see the team that Sven ended up bringing. He brought a team I did not expect, to say the least. We have Barrascuda, Ditto, Klefki, Lurantis, Spectre, and Tyranitar. I am so surprised to see Lurantis, and I'm even more surprised to not see the Landers Incarnate. Now, if you think, you know, like, if I beat X thing, Lurantis can put on work, for sure. You know, like, that's fair. I can't, like, you know, scream and yell about that. But I am incredibly surprised that Landers didn't come. I just didn't think I had any counterplay to it whatsoever. I can see why Ditto came, maybe really scared of a SD and Chomp, you know, potentially winning the game, especially against a build like this. So that makes a little bit of sense, to be fair. Barrascuda did pretty good versus me. Klefki can be very, very annoying as well. T-Tar is a T-Tar. But it's not the best version of me, to be completely honest. And then Spectre, if it's like the sub-disable set, I think it does really well. But yeah, I don't know. I really expected Landers to come here, for sure. We're going to go ahead and jump into this one. I believe, what do I like to lead off with? Yeah, we end up leading off with our Inteleon. As we see that there's not really great counterplay to it. Other than the Lurantis, we kind of just click Snipe Shot and claim a kill, especially if you get in early on a lot of different things, which I think is really important. As we're going to go ahead and skip forward a little bit, as we are going to see what Sven leads off here in the Klefki. Now, I know that I can 2-hit KO this thing for sure, but in my mind, there's not really a reason to stay in and risk taking this Thunder Wave, whereas my Celebi is here to set up and push through this thing. Even if it's Magnet Rise to potentially, you know, get above our Earth powers and things like that, we can pretty darn easily just set up and just throw off big +2 Leaf Storms and do a ton of damage to either this or anything that wants to come in all reality. So I think that's going to be our best bet, not letting our Inteleon get, you know, parried. And yeah, we're going to pivot right out into Celebi and hopefully put in a little bit of work here, as we are going to see a big Toxic come off here, as we do avoid the attack, which is definitely advantageous for us because it means we avoid, we get 1 extra turn of like Toxic not chipping us down. It's going to let us be healthier at the end of this. So that's definitely really fortunate for me, as we are going to see another Toxic here come out, as we do just off a big nasty plot this turn, which again, going to be really, really clutch for our Celebi here, as we do throw off this nasty plot, as we do get poisoned. But again, that's completely fine. We can regen or get rid of that pretty darn easily. And another thing that's really good about this is that this nasty plot variant isn't checked by my own, or isn't beaten by my own Celebi. Like, I can't hit my own self, if that makes any sense, for that Ditto coming in. So we are going to see spikes come up here, which is definitely unfortunate, but again, not the biggest deal in the world. We can get up our own spikes, potentially pressure that way as well. We're just going to have to be extra careful about things like Spectre, as unfortunately this Klefki is pretty darn spadef, so it is going to be able to chew up this +2 Earth power. And again, that's completely fine with me. We're just going to throw off another big hit here, hopefully, and take this Klefki out really, really early on. Sorry, went a little too fast. We are just going to Earth power again, as I believe Sven just got up another spike. Again, 2 spikes isn't that big of a deal. 3 spikes would have been really, really unfortunate, because I believe the jump in damage is a lot higher. It goes from like 18 to like 25 instead of 12 to 18. So unless my math is just terrible and I don't know how to count. But regardless, I'm fine with 2 spikes. It's not 25% on everything when I come in. And my Celebi, because we dodged that first poison, is actually going to be pretty darn healthy here going forward, which again is really, really, really nice for us. Now, this does force in probably Spectre, but with how healthy my, what do you call it is? My Scrafty, even with the 2 spikes up, I'm not super concerned about this thing. If I see a substitute, I'm going to knock into rest every single time. There's no reason not to, in any instance, because if it is subbing here, it's probably going to be some kind of disable variant, and if it's not, it doesn't push through me anyways. So that's the only way it can really beat my Scrafty at this point. So at this point, we're in a pretty good position here to check the Spectre, at least right now. The spikes are going to get very annoying. We're going to have to be very careful about how we play this Scrafty and how we switch in, as we are going to see a Hex come off here. Not doing too much damage, to be completely honest. Showing that it is most likely modest, I believe. But not doing, like, you know, specs damage or anything like that, which is also good to know. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to tell if this thing is like a submarine, or, you know, if it's choice or whatever the set may be. We're not going to be able to tell in this instance, but we get a very, very free knockoff into whatever really wants to come in here, which is great for us. So, and he doesn't have great knock switch-ins, especially being that the Klefki's gone. Now, Klefki, if it didn't have a fairy move, didn't beat us anyways. But it could have came in, instead of a spike, threw off a Toxic, force us into a rest or something like that, which would have been really clutch. But there's really just not great switch-ins at this point, as we are going to see T-Tar come hard in. And this was very, very interesting to me. We saw it come hard in immediately, as I just threw off a big knockoff here, getting rid of its weakness policy, which is also very, very, very scary for me. Now, I do know at this point that I can just Drain Punch off this damage. If it wants to attack me, I'll be in a pretty decent position, and potentially just knock it out from full, depending on his spread and things like that, especially if he is more offensive, being that he is a weakness policy variant. But we're going to see he's very fast, so if he was a fast superpower variant, maybe we could have been in a tough spot there. But there's not like I had great switch-ins to it otherwise, as I am just going to Drain Punch off this damage. Unfortunately, just missed out on the KO, so rocks go up. There are also 2 spikes, so there's lots of hazards right now, which is unfortunate. And being that I saw that this thing's, speed is higher than mine, it's going to be faster than me, I want to pivot out here. I want to make sure that I'm still decently healthy so I can check that Spectre, because if it is like a Scarf variant, it just beats me after this thing goes down. So I am going to make, you know, a potentially aggressive pivot out into something else, expecting like a superpower or something similar. I believe I end up settling on going into Celebi, because there's no universe in which this thing ever crunches on this turn. There's no universe in which it crunches. It's going to like superpower or something like that at worst case scenario into my Scrafty. And at best case, it might like Earthquake or like random Stone Edge or something like that. Maybe even throw off like a special move. I don't know, like a Ice Beam. If it is like Special Tar, which would make a decent amount of sense, I guess, if you're really scared of Chomp. As we're going to take a ton of damage here, though, which is a little bit unfortunate. But again, not the end of the world, as Earthquake is going to come out into our Celebi. So it wasn't Superpower, which is, again, very, very interesting. Unfortunate, but whatever. What can you do about it? As we do I guess not unfortunate, though, because it is, because we wouldn't have to take that 2 spikes in the rocks if I would just stayed in and Drain Punch. But again, I didn't want to take that damage and just like be in range of hazards plus Shadow Ball or something like that. It would have put me in a terrible position. So I am forced to scout for that, in my opinion, as I do just take this thing out with an Earth Power. We're not going to risk Leaf Storm Miss or anything like that. And we're going to force a Spectre back in here, most definitely, as not much else can really beat my Celebi at this point. I suppose like a knockoff for an Exit Lurantis could come in, but I feel like I still have Scolipede, so it's not really worth blowing that right away. As well as potentially Barraskewda with Crunch. But again, I don't think that's the best offensive position. I think he forces the most progress by going to Spectre and making me save this thing as, like, you know, basically death fodder, I guess, and making me take a bunch of hazard damage on my Scrafty, which is really, really annoying, as he does end up doing that. So I think that was definitely fair on Sven's part. I definitely would have gotten to that over the other, you know, mons that I had that I could have pivoted into. And right here, I am always forced into Scrafty, right? I can't ever go into anything else, because I can't let this thing 2-hit KO my whole team and just start compounding boosts and things like that. So we do make the play out into Scrafty, but again, this is fine because Scrafty still takes this thing on very comfortably, even if it throws off a Shadow Ball here, which we are going to see that it does throw off. After Spikes and Sand, things like that, it doesn't come anywhere close to 2-hit KOing us. We could have let it get in the boost and then like Drain Punch this thing and still not been 2-hit KO'd, which again, very, very nice for us. So Shadow Ball is going to come out here. We are going to take a decent chunk, and next time we may be forced to rest depending on where we're at, but not the biggest deal in the world, to be completely honest, as we are just going to get a little bit of lefties back here, which is obviously very, very nice. This next turn, go ahead and skip ahead a little bit, as this is taking a little bit longer in a post-com format. I am just going to knock off again. It's very, very, very free, as we do see Ditto come out, and this is going to be obviously 4 times resistant. It's going to take it pretty darn well, especially with the Intimidate copying our Scrafty, but knocking off the Choice Scarf for the Ditto is so ridiculously clutch for us. It means that our Garchomp will guaranteed outspeed, and he can't outspeed us or win a speed tie, I guess, against our Scarf Chomp, which is really, really, really nice. And then it allows us to like potentially win speed ties later against this thing, which is again really, really clutch for us and really kind of lowers the potency of this. What do you call it? It's Scrafty. This next turn, I am going to elect to make the pivot play out into my Celebi and just basically sack it off to rocks plus spikes. It's not doing anything at this point anymore. Everything really outspeeds it, or I can't Oko. So I might as well use this as an opportunity to get a free switch into something, as nothing on my team really wants to take a knock or a drain punch or anything like that very well. So we are going to sack that thing off, unfortunately, and I believe I am going to go into Scolipede. And you're going to see why later. I think this was a bit of a bad play on my end, because this Pokemon was really, really good in this matchup and could even potentially clean later or give me an out versus a Pokemon I'm going to have a little bit of trouble versus later. So I think maybe I should have gone to something else. I should have gone Inteleon just Snipe Shotted, because Inteleon isn't super useful in this game, right? It doesn't check all too much. It really doesn't check all too much, to be completely honest. It doesn't outspeed everything either. We don't outspeed Spectrier. We don't outspeed Barraskewda. We don't Oko anything. And we don't beat Lurantis because we don't have Ice Beam. So I think my play definitely was to go out into Inteleon. It's just bad positioning by me, which is something that I think that's the main thing that I've been struggling with in a lot of my games, is like poor offensive positioning. Sorry. As I am going to throw off a Life Orb Megahorn here. It was a roll to potentially knock. I thought it was, well, it wasn't a roll to knock it out. I could knock it out with, what do you call it? Life Orb Megahorn into like non-Life Orb Earthquake was like a roll to potentially, you know, take this thing on, which would have been great. And I could have gotten a big hit off on something else the turn afterwards, but yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, but that's life. I really think this was poor offensive positioning by me. I don't really have a way of justifying me going Scolipede instead of me going into something else, as he is going to save this thing for later, which is completely fine. He's going to go on to Barraskewda, which is honestly a smart play here, because I don't believe I knocked out with a non-life orb Megahorn. I Earthquake to be a little bit more safe, and I can't really reliably save this thing, right? I just died to hazards. I don't have any way of removing the hazards because my team has terrible removal. So while this thing can definitely Aqua Jet, I don't know. I would rather, you know, catch him being over-aggressive and crunching on my Jellicent coming in, opposed to saving a sack for later, because I don't really feel like I need to have those sacks right now. And right here, unfortunately, we are going to go down and, you know, die to this Aqua Jet. This thing is most likely like a banned variant, but again, it's completely fine. What I should have done right here, again, is I should have just gone into Jellicent and tried to deal with this thing that way instead of going into my Garchomp and taking this Aqua Jet, because you're going to see that it's going to bite me in the ass. Taking that damage for no reason, really, is really going to hurt me here, as Garchomp is going to end up being the mon I do end up choosing to go into. And the reason this is unfortunate is because in my head, I think I was just tunneled on, I don't know why. I think I just miscalced, because I remember looking at the calcs in-game and seeing, like, Modest. And, like, the set is, like, choice specs, like, in the calc. And I took off the specs and saw that it wasn't specs damage, but I just tunneled. I was like, ah, it's specs. I can just Outrage and get through a lot of Pokemon right here and do a ton to a lot of Mons. You know, really chip down that Spectre and put it in a range where it's going to die soon. Something I didn't keep into account, though, is that it was a, what do you call it? Scarf Spectre. And even if it wasn't, it's not a good play unless I get a 2-turn Outrage, because I need this thing to break through Lurantis, as dumb as it sounds. I sacked my Scolipede with bad offensive positioning before. I'm going to offensively position terrible here, too, because I could have just gone to Jellicent, throw off a Shadow Ball. I could have gone into Inteleon and just spammed Snipe Shot or something like that. Like, there was options. I could have gone into Inteleon and spammed Dark Pulse even. If that, you know, ended up forcing in like something like a Lurantis, I could have been in a decent position right there and gotten off Dark Pulse damage to put this thing in, put it into range of Outrage. So I'm just not positioning well offensively, which is really just coming back to bite me in a lot of these endgame scenarios where I just don't have the pieces to win. I feel like the early game I'm playing fine, and then this mid game is where I really struggle offensively. As this Spectre is going to come out in my head, I'm like, I at least get off some damage on this thing, which is great. No, I don't get off any damage on this thing, which is not great. And again, I'm locked in. I don't kill this thing from full. I needed like spikes in order to kill this thing with an Outrage from full. So even if it wasn't, it just wasn't a good play on my end to, you know, lock into Outrage. I could have Dragon Clawed and knocked that thing out too and potentially saved it that way. But again, I don't even think I should have gone to Garchomp, to be completely honest. I really don't think I should have. As right here, I am just going to be forced into my Scrafty. We're going to go ahead and zoom forward a little bit. And right here, I am just going to make that knock play. No reason to make any play otherwise. I suppose I could Drain Punch. Drain Punch would have gotten me a little bit of health on that Scrafty, which on his incoming, you know, Scrafty, I guess it's coming in right here. But again, I'm not super worried about that. I'm pretty darn tilted at this point in the game too. Really saying like, wow, I don't know how I win here. I think I lose to Lurantis, and you're going to see that might be the case. Is right here, I am just going to go into my Jellicent here on an aggressive play, expecting a Drain Punch to come out. And I am going to get that play correctly, which is good at the very least. And this next turn, I'm just going to be able to click Surf and, you know, knock this Scrafty out, which is very nice. I knew that I outsped it as well just due to my speed investment and knocking off the thing's Scarf earlier, which again, really came up clutch at the very least. So we're going to knock out the Scrafty, and he only has 2 Pokemon left, but those 2 Pokemon do so darn well against me, as we are going to see the Lurantis come out. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I just have to spam Shadow Ball here and try and beat this thing in that way. But you're going to see it is pretty darn tough for me to beat this thing. I ended up taking off Ice Beam for Aqua Jet too, because I really expected that Landorus to be the mon that came over this, what do you call it, over this Lurantis, and it just didn't. Which was very tough, because you're going to see in an instance here, there's, you know, some points in which I could have potentially won the game if I had Ice Beam, or put myself in a better position to win the game if I had Ice Beam, but obviously I didn't. And you're going to see a sub on this thing, and I'm like, oh wow, well if it's Leaf Storm, I obviously lose. We're going to see, I'm not going to break the sub with Shadow Ball, showing this thing is incredibly bulky. I'm going to hit with a big Leaf Blade down to 41 HP, which is terrible, to say the least. As the leftovers are going to continue to get this thing up right here, I believe I am just going to Shadow Ball again, as his best play is to always sub, because he can always end up with a sub as long as, you know, I don't get crit, or get a crit and end up in a good position like that. I suppose I could have taunted here, but again, just in a terrible position. At least this thing's weakening itself down. If I can get a crit right here, this thing could potentially be in range of a, Dark Pulse crit, like a Specs Dark Pulse crit, or I could flinch it into it, KO it, and basically secure myself the game as well, which is, again, a really good instance. So that's kind of going to be my out that I'm playing for right here. A Shadow Ball is going to come out, we're going to hit the sub, and we are going to crit. So it makes this game a lot more interesting than it would be, because if this thing ends up behind a sub, it obviously just superpowers and Leaf Blades through my whole team, and there's nothing I can do about it. So my Jellicent is going to go down. That's fine. I didn't need it for anything. If anything, it came up clutch in getting that big crit, because I think, just lost to this Lurantis on the spot, if that was the case. This next turn, I am going to go into my Inteleon. I am going to throw off a Dark Pulse. Now, if I was Ice Beam, this endgame becomes a little bit more iffy, right? Because I'm going to pause it a little bit here. Because I threaten an Ice Beam KO on this thing if I'm Specs, right? And obviously, he can't really let that happen, or he loses to Scrafty. So I could potentially call that, go for a U-turn, get into my Scrafty, do some damage that way, and do some stuff that way, which would be, again, really, really clutch. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to, you know, kind of make that bluff right there. We're going to go for a Dark Pulse, and my best hope is hoping that he is going to scout for the Ice Beam and pivot into the Spectre, and we get a Dark Pulse off, though. The only issue is I believe Dark Pulse is a roll. I don't know if it's a roll guaranteed. Let me check while we're here. Because he does go hard into it, which is great for us. And in my head, I'm like, oh, yo, like, can I win the game right here? So we're going to check Inteleon. We're going to get it to +1. Sorry, not +6. And we're going to give it Dark Pulse to a Spectrier. As right here, you're going to see we obviously do not knock it out. We can check and see if that was a roll, though. I don't remember particularly. As to no bulk Spectrier, it guaranteed killed. So that makes me think that he, you know, had a decent amount of HP investment. I don't know Sven's spread. If he's max HP, I need a max roll to kill, and it is 85 to 100. So it really does depend on his spread, what the roll is. I'm not going to front and act like we got low rolled, we got min rolled. I really don't know. But that basically does potentially just secure the game. There's not going to be much we're going to be able to do right here, as I am going to be forced out into my Scrafty, as we do die guaranteed to a Scarf hit right there. And I'm going to go ahead and get this Intimidate off, as right here the Spectre is going to throw off a Shadow Ball. And in my head, right, my only play here is hoping he stays in. In my head, I'm thinking he's going to stay in, sack this thing off, get into his, what do you call it, his Lurantis, and then throw off a superpower and, you know, win the game, right? The only issue is if I stay this low and he switches out, I lose to Spectre anyways. So in my head, I'm like, oh man, I don't know, you know, what his play is right here. In my head, I'm thinking he doesn't go hard into the Lurantis, because if I knock it off, I'm in a potential good spot. I can pivot into my Inteleon and go from there. The only unfortunate thing, though, is you're going to see he does go into the Lurantis, but looking at the calcs after the game, he actually killed me, guaranteed, with a superpower from that range. Like, I couldn't live, so there wasn't even a 50-50 after this point. If I switched in hard in the superpower, I died, which is really unfortunate. Now, if I knocked off, that into Dark Pulse could have killed if he didn't kill me. But he did, obviously, and there's not much I can do about that. And that's basically going to be the game. You're going to see this thing is going to, I believe... What does it do here? What did it even do? I Sleep Talk. Oh, we're going to see a superpower. Yeah, we see a superpower come off. It's not going to KO me. I get a Drain Punch from my Sleep Talk roll there. And from there, I believe I just go hard Inteleon. I don't know. There's nothing I could really do at that point, as you're going to see us, you know, just lose the game right here. He subbed. I don't think he needed to sub, but, you know, it's whatever. It doesn't really matter. He could have gotten a pretty free one off regardless. And unfortunately, we are just going to lose that one. It's tough. We're, what, 1-4? Theoretically, if we win our last 3, we can make playoffs. I'm obviously not playing very well this season, guys. I'm not playing very well in general. We're not doing too hot and pack either. It's just a slump. And I know what I'm doing wrong especially when I'm post-coming these games, actually. I can kind of look back a lot more retrospectively when I'm not, like, commentating and worried about being, you know, entertaining and things like that. I can see like the multiple moments in which I screwed up offensively this game with like my positioning. Again, I think I had more pieces and I could have, you know, had a better end game if I just didn't pick the wrong Pokemon to go into on those double downs and on those free turns and things like that. So it's just something I need to be better about, obviously, and you know, hopefully bounce back. We play Hayes next week, and I'm hoping we win. I like the team I built, and yeah, we just gotta bounce back. We got 3 games left. It's Hayes, Kurt, and Keegan. So Hayes is our next one. Then we play Keegan, who's having a great season. We play Kurt, who's undefeated and is obviously a great player. Beat me the last time we played him, so got our work cut out for us. But what can I do about it? You know, I'm just gonna keep trudging through, and I'll figure it out. I promise, guys. So I appreciate you being patient with me. I appreciate you sticking through me throughout the slump, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.